Thank you all for coming out tonight. It's so great to be speaking to you all. So I'm going to be talking about how to use events for B2B marketing. So before I get started, I always like to get a bit of an idea of who I'm talking to. I do know that this is a newer meetup to London, so I was curious to see, what sort of people might be interested in coming out to this. So more with relevance to what I'm speaking about tonight, who here has experience in marketing? Oh, okay, good bit of you, very nice. All right, who has experience in B2B, business to business specifically? Oh my gosh, all those people. Okay, cool. And lastly, who actually runs events already? Okay, cool. So maybe you'll learn something new tonight, or maybe you'll just be nodding along to all of the pains that I will be speaking about. Either way, hopefully it should be good. So I do have a slide to introduce myself, but thank you so much, Natalie, for doing that already. So yeah, again, my name is Lora. I'm just gonna say it now, I'm American, just so we can get that part out of the way. So I'm a B2B marketing manager. And then also I am a digital marketing instructor. It's kind of a side thing. And then my passion project is this circle community that Natalie also already mentioned. So it's a women's community. We do have an event coming up for Women's Day. So if you do want more information, please do let me know after. I'd be happy to share more about that. So I've actually only been a B2B marketing manager for the last year. So I'm a little bit newer to the B2B environment. But actually, most of my career is in B2C, so business to consumer. This is the logo here for General Assembly. That's the global digital skills education company that I worked at for most of my career so far. It's also where I actually teach digital marketing as well now. And so I worked at the London campus, that's just down the street here, and my marketing role there was based on a very specific tactic. And that tactic was to use free events at our campus mostly to talk about different content related to our digital world, digital skills, and different things like that. And so I really, truly believe in the value of events. And actually, so looking back now, the events that I did for that specific top of the funnel awareness tactic led to about $1 million in sales year over year. So clearly it was effective. So now I'm taking on this new challenge. So I'm working at Altius. It's a data science consultancy and focusing on essentially providing data solutions to large multinational companies. And so my target audience is very, very different from what it was at General Assembly. I'm trying to target, with marketing, top-level executives, people who in many ways are very, very different from me. Working at GA, it was mostly millennials that we were targeting, so I found that much easier to relate to. So first of all, it's definitely much more difficult for me, but I think, anytime you become a little bit too comfortable with what you're doing, probably means you need to move into something different. So that's what I've done. And sometimes I wonder, why did I do this to myself? But anyway, moving on. So what are we going to talk about in the next 20 minutes or so? So I've broken it down into 3 different sections. So the first one is just talking about the B2B marketing landscape today. In some ways, it's quite different than what it has been in the last 5 or 10 years or so. So what is it like today? I'm sure many of you will agree or have your own thoughts on what it's like. Then, why would we use events as part of our marketing strategy for B2B? And then I'm going to leave you with a couple of tips on how to run events in the B2B environment. Sound good? All right. So I always like to start with a definition when it's the topic that we're going to be speaking about. So B2B marketing, how do we define that? I would say it's the process of promoting a product or service from one business to another. And one of the stereotypes about it is that, it's kind of boring in a way. And I'm allowed to say that. I work in the field and, I find it very exciting. But I think that for people from the outside might think like, oh, these big four accounting firms or, these large consultancies, or you could even think of the show The Office, right? So whether it's the UK or the US version, right? So they sell, that's a B2B environment there as well. They're selling, copy paper and, staplers and different things like that. So all B2B. But tonight, I'm probably going to focus a little bit more on the sort of more professional services side of B2B, because that's a little bit more of my experience. So the events that I'm going to refer to are going to be a little bit more like smaller niche style events that are very highly targeted. And of course, there's a place for like conferences and things like that. That's not so much my experience, so I won't be referencing that. But I am aware that our next speaker does have more experience in the conference side of things. So if you're interested in that side, he might have a little more to say there. So yes, maybe it's not always the most exciting, but the other thing about it is that B2B is really difficult. And there's a couple of reasons why, at least from my point of view. The first reason is that you're trying to reach these busy key decision makers that are, busy at work. So think about B2C as a comparison. You're probably able to target people more so when they're, leisurely scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, or, walking down the street and looking up at a billboard or something like that. So I am not by any means saying that B2C is any easier, but just to compare, when you're trying to do B2B marketing, you're trying to target people while they're at work, doing their work, probably not having much time in their day to break to think, okay, I'm being marketed to, maybe I should pay attention to this thing. So that's one particular challenge. The next challenge is you really do have to have a deep understanding of the company's challenge and what you can do to specifically address this. So right now, working for a data science consultancy, we have specific accounts that we are looking to target, and we need to understand for every single one of these accounts, where are they in their data science journey? Do they already have a data strategy? Are they already doing things in data science? Do they have a data science team? Or have they done nothing yet? Because you need to approach them already knowing these things about them. And that's going to be a much easier way to get their attention. But this takes time. There's a lot of research involved there. And lastly, the B2B sales cycles are very, very lengthy. And it takes a lot of patience and grit and determination to really see through the marketing and subsequently sales that you're doing. I read a stat recently that said that B2B journeys, sales cycles take around 3 to 12 months, or maybe even a bit longer. So it's a really, really long process. And so along the way, you need to be providing education so that you can kind of move them along in their journey to get to the decision of if they're going to choose you as their solution. So lots of patience involved there. So let's get into the event side of things, since that's why we're here. So why would we use events for this to address these challenges? Perhaps being devil's advocate, I could ask, why wouldn't you use events? Well, or if as a marketer, if you're approaching your boss, he might say, they're extremely expensive and they're extremely time consuming, and they can take quite a bit of a team of people to get involved. And so these are definitely reasons that you might hear about why not to do it. But let's actually talk about the why we should. Firstly, it's a really great excuse to reach out to people so that they can kind of find out about who you are initially. Of course, you can use events at any point in the journey, even if people already know who you are. But as an initial option, you can reach out and say, oh, I would like to invite you to this particular event. Now, it's a lot more compelling than a lot of other ways that we probably all find ourselves being marketed to all the time. Many marketers in the room here, so I'm sure we all receive hundreds of these extremely annoying messages in our inbox per week, offering SEO services, website optimization services, a lead list. And it's like, what is going to make you stand out other than the fact that maybe you used a little bit of yellow highlighting here? Like, it's just incredibly daunting. And I'm not reading these. I'm just deleting them and just wishing that you would get out of my inbox so I can try to get down with my job. Now, the thing is, I actually might need SEO services. But a company that chooses a tactic that's just this to try to get that done, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go with that. It's not unique, it's not interesting, it's not different, and it doesn't look like you're really making much effort. You're being quite lazy about it. So I don't think that that is a good impression for your company. So inviting someone to an event is showing that you actually took the time to put something together and you thought about this particular person that you wanted to be present at that event. I think there's a little bit more care involved there. The next reason is my favorite, the reciprocity principle. This is one of my favorite aspects of marketing. I think it works very well. So how do we define reciprocity? So it's the practice of exchanging things with others for mutual benefits. So essentially, you are inviting someone to an experience, and then they are thinking, oh, well, lovely. This company is providing me, maybe some nice food and drink, some interesting networking opportunities, hopefully some really good content where I'll walk away having learned something. And so that might be more of a reason that you might want to give back and take more of an interest in that company and what it is, the product that they are offering. And then the third reason why we should use events for B2B marketing is that events are human. It's very simple. And they can help to accelerate relationship building and trust in your brand. I think it's one of the best ways to show your brand positively. So we live in a digital world, and there's so much noise. Thousands of things on our mobile phones and on our computers every single day trying to vie for our attention. It does make it extremely difficult to stand out online. And so thinking about coming to an event and experiencing something in person and getting to meet people, and as your company showing that you have a face and that you have a voice and that you have an opinion about things, I think it's a really great way to set yourself apart from the next company that might just be only investing in an email strategy. Like an example, of course, tonight is VoxGig hosting this event. Perfect example. So just a couple of tips that I have for if you are interested in running your own B2B events. So the first one is thinking about the particular content that you are delivering. And it seems obvious, but it's all too easy to find yourself getting salesy. It happens all the time. I still see it even at my own company. It's just because, especially, you know, if you have like salespeople, they're so driven to kind of get to their point and really, you know, tell you about this is our solution and this is what it can do for you, and they get to that point so quickly, and it really does turn people off very easily, I think. If I find myself experiencing that, I kind of tend to shut down pretty quickly. So you need to think about the fact that it might be a journey of an event or a few events or an events along with a bunch of different types of content over this very long sales cycle. You need to think about that as a relationship that takes time to build. And remember that, you know, things like if you have a client that you can bring along to talk about how you may have implemented the solution, it's kind of letting them explain why it worked for them in a very realistic way, as opposed to you just saying, we're great and this is why. So definitely thinking about your content and ensuring that, you know, you're not jumping to the sale too quickly. Save that for later. Save that for people to come to you and say, I'd really like to learn more about that. Please do come in and do that sales pitch. In my opinion, I would say that the more niche, the better. Try to really make it personal. So if you're thinking about creating an event, and again, like I said, I'm coming really more from the point of view of when you're really trying to reach top decision makers. So let's say, for example, that you might be targeting, you know, VPs or director level people of a company. So you might want to be doing a round table or something like that. The more specific that it is to that person, the more likely they're going to pay attention to it because it addressed their very specific problem. So let me just give you an example. So you're the director of sales at a SaaS marketing startup, and you're looking to invest in a CRM. So which of the following two events might be more appealing? It's pretty obvious what I think, but you can argue with me if you like. So the first one is CRMs for all types of businesses. So let's say there's maybe 5 different speakers and they're all gonna come from different points of view of the business. And maybe this person who's coming to the event might be like, okay, I'm only interested in the 5th talk. Or the event is sales-driven CRMs for SaaS startups. So this kind of addresses your particular problem. And keep in mind that it's also more about quality than it is about quantity. You don't need to have an event with hundreds of people. You just need to make sure that you get the right people in the room. So I would go for number 2 if I was this director of sales here. But some people might just say, oh, I'm really just curious about the topic in general and might want to come along to the first one. But I would say for the particular B2B marketing scenario, you want to be a little bit more specific. And then lastly, really, really think about the complete end-to-end experience. Now, this one is obvious, especially for those of us who run events. But I would have to say that in the B2B environment specifically, especially when you're trying to target these time-poor decision makers to get them to come to something physically when, you know, maybe they live outside of London, maybe they have children and families at home, things like that. You want to really make sure that you are providing the absolute best experience from beginning to end that you can, because this could be your make it or break it moment. If they have a bad experience, they might decide, I'm not really interested in this company. So just a few, these are just kind of a handful of things that you might need to think about. And one of the things is, you know, like I said, most of my experience was in running events for B2C marketing. Now, the thing is, I was responsible for running an average of 3 events a week or so, which was absolutely crazy. And I was responsible for that single-handedly. And so the strategy was absolutely effective, but it was really pretty much impossible for me to obsess about the absolute every single thing about this, because it was actually much more about quantity there, getting people through the door and things like that. So the most important thing to me was providing a quality speaker. But when you're thinking about a B2B environment, I really think it's important to perfect every stage of the journey. So that's starting with who you're inviting and how you're doing your outreach. Making sure that you're aligned sales and marketing so that you're not, doubling up on efforts. Thinking about the event graphics that you're using and how you're going to promote those. Making the registration process easy. Thinking about, the venue, and if it's easy to access, is it easy to find? If you walk in, is someone there to greet you? All of these things are an opportunity to make a positive impression. So I had a very funny experience recently that's relevant to this. So I was attending a B2B marketing event, and it was hosted by a marketing consultancy. And this was my first interaction with this consultancy. I'd never heard of them before, but they did target me and invite me to the event. Great. I always love to go to events. And so I walk in and I go up to the desk where the woman is greeting me, and she looks very flustered. And I look down, and there is just a pile of probably around 100 completely scattered together badges. And I was just like, this is weird. And the thing is, okay, I'm an events person, so obviously I pay attention to these things probably a little bit more than your average person. But I just thought it was so strange. The woman was just like, you can go in. You don't need your badge because you're never gonna find it in this pile. And so it was strange to me, but also it was quite a networking heavy event. So I was like, darn, it's kind of a missed opportunity in a way, because now I don't know anyone here at all. I've got this sea of people, and I don't really know who would be the best to kind of go up and chat to make it worthwhile for me. And I'm going to be honest, the event was actually great. The speakers were really great. So it's not that I'm completely looking down on them or anything, but that was just one example of, how you can really take the opportunity to every single touch point, make it worthwhile and a good experience for the people involved. We've all experienced probably AV issues. That's always a nightmare. It happens to everyone. Think about food and drink you're providing, interesting speakers, quality networking, even the post-event communications. If it's really an event that's for marketing and sales, you need to think about, who was the most interested in the sale, who's going to follow up with that person, and then also the people who might be less interested because they're not as far along in their journey. So how are you going to nurture those people and keep your company top of mind as they move through possibly their journey with deciding if they might want to use your company or not? So these are just a few things, and I'm sure many of you are probably thinking of other things that I've missed here, but just a couple of examples. So, coming to the end here, just to review. Sorry, that's a very, very bright color on this screen. So, the 3 whys, why should we run events for B2B marketing? So, they're great for cold outreach. You have that reciprocity aspect, and it really helps accelerate relationship building and trust. And then my personal 3 tips, I just picked 3 this evening, but of course I could go on all day about this. Making sure that the content is actually educational, because educational content is specifically useful in B2B. Making that event pretty niche, and then also perfecting that end-to-end experience. So that is all. Thank you very much. I'm more than happy to connect with anyone if you'd like to add me on LinkedIn, and I will be around later if you want to talk any further. But otherwise, I really appreciate it. I don't know if we have any questions.
Yeah, actually, I have a question. How you mentioned budget and investing it in events? How you kind of qualify the goals and objectives of this?
So to be honest, I think that that's just an initial an argument that you might hear. Expensive is relative. It really depends more about the percentage of the budget that you might be wanting to spend on it. The events that I'm referring to more don't actually have to be that expensive. It depends what it is. So if it's a small, meetup style event, similar to this, it could be, something around £500 or so. Or if you're doing like a roundtable dinner, that might be more expensive, but maybe a breakfast briefing, that could only be a few £100s. So actually, it doesn't really have to be that expensive. But when a lot of people think about expensive, they might be thinking in their head more about like conferences and things like that. So I think it's a matter of saying marketing is all about trial and error. Like, because your senior executives can look at you and say, no, that's not going to work. I don't want to spend the money on it. And it's like, how can you say it's not going to work? You need to prove that it could or can or cannot. So let's try one and see how that budget works. Personally, I find it to be absolutely the most effective way to spend your money. But yeah, I don't know if that was helpful or not.
Just wondering about kind of ROI then as a whole. There's a lot of people talking in events about how do you actually measure, is there a way of being, it's like the holy grail, how do you kind of work out what the ROI is on events? When
Absolutely.
The likelihood of somebody coming to see you at an event and then a sale happens within a few days, or it could take several events, as you mentioned, till the sale happens. So have you found any ways of being able to kind of justify spend and prove ROI?
Yeah, so I think just as much as, you are trying to educate people in a B2B buyer journey as a marketer, I find that I need to educate the people in my company about marketing because I was actually the first marketing hire. And so it's really acknowledging the fact that it does take a lot of patience. Like everybody wants their instant gratification these days. Everybody wants to see, okay, we ran this event and in the next week we got that sale. And that's just not realistic. And especially just speaking about the B2B environment. And so the best way to do that is by making sure that you have a CRM and ensuring that you're really able to track all the outreach that you're doing, and seeing, is it attributed to marketing and which marketing strategy, and then also, or is it directly from a salesperson or things like that. But the CRM is the best way to do that because you can really track everything. Something that integrates with all of the different marketing activities that you're doing. So integrates with your website, integrate with your email strategy, integrates with the signups that you get for events and like webinars and things like that. So that is how you can link, this person from this company attended this event and then went on to a sale. But again, it could take 6 months or longer. So yeah, using that tech. It's gotten pretty sophisticated, but also it's justifying the fact that you need to actually invest in that. And that's the other challenge is actually convincing, senior decision makers that it's worth investing in, but it really is. Because if you can't see ROI for your marketing, then how do you ever know you're doing a good job? It's very frustrating. I know. Anything else? All right.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.